Welcome back to the Dear Old State Update, brought to you by Penn State Sports Night. I'm Charley Drexler, and I'm alongside Gina, and we have the latest on everything Penn State sports.
From history on the diamond to thrilling games on the road, Penn State's spring sports are in full swing, and our beat reporters have the inside scoop. The Dear Old State Update starts now. Penn State softball is coming off of back-to-back Big Ten Series sweeps with explosive offense and dominance in the circle. Let's pass it over to Brady for a look into this past weekend's series against Maryland.
After a blown 5-run lead in Pittsburgh Tuesday, Penn State softball went back home and showed no mercy to the Maryland Terrapins, debuting some rally wigs, a Gabby Gradishar grand slam, and 2 long balls from Brianna Haddock would count for 3 of the Nittany Lions' 5 home runs Friday afternoon.
I think just having that trust in my teammates and knowing that when my last at bat, like having Gabby and Maddie on, and there just being 2 outs, I was like 2 strikes, and like, what's there to lose? Like, I have nothing, and we picked the changeup. I was like, all right, let's get it.
The atmosphere was electric here at Beard Field for all 3 games of this weekend. On Friday, the Nittany Lions mercy ruled the Terrapins 13-5, and then on Saturday, in a doubleheader game 1, they scored 13 runs in the 4th inning to beat Maryland 16-4 and mercy ruled them again. The offense was not as prevalent in game 3, however, as the Nittany Lions and Terrapins both struggled to score at all until the 7th inning. Brooke Clausewitz had something to say about it. With Hannock on first, Clausewitz was finally able to solve Aubrey Wurst, hitting a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 7th and propelling the Nittany Lions to their 6th consecutive Big Ten win.
Going into the 7th, we talked about this earlier this week, right? It's about we have to be the more mentally tough team, and what that means for us is, first off, we got to go out there being confident, posture up, and surrender the result and be all in on every single pitch in the process, and they did that.
We saw this weekend that everybody can get it done, like 1 through 9. I think that's one of my favorite parts about this year is you don't have to depend on one person. You can depend on the entire bench, the entire lineup.
Penn State will be back home next weekend for a 3-game series against Northwestern. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Brady Welsh.
Thanks for that great look, Brady. Back home in Happy Valley after a weekend on the road at Rutgers, the Nittany Lions didn't just win, they took over. Taking on the Maryland Terrapins, Penn State wasn't just outrunning the rain with an early Friday game and a Saturday doubleheader. They were outscoring Maryland on their way to an impressive series sweep, racking up 31 runs across the weekend. The Nittany Lions made history over the weekend. They had back-to-back mercy rule games. What was the key to their success?
It was pretty much a team effort the entire weekend, especially the offense. Mercy rule in the first 2 games, and they went down in those first 2 games as well. They went down 3-1 in game 1. They went down, I believe it was 4-2 or 4-3 in game 2. But their offense was just resilient. Their 8-run 3rd inning against Maryland in game 1 propelled them in that one, and then they had a 13-run 4th inning. So they just built off of their momentum. They created their own momentum, and the vibes were just high this entire weekend.
Yeah, Coach C definitely talks about just getting it done. The offense knows what to do when they're up to the plate, and they just get the job done. And we look back at Rutgers, swept them too. They're coming out to six Big Ten win streak. How does that happen?
Pretty much the same thing, mainly timely hitting. And Coach Cronwell, she has a motto that she brings up pretty much every press conference during her opening statement: gritty, not pretty. And that was exactly what we saw out of the Nittany Lions, both against Rutgers and especially that last game against Maryland. They had 1 hit going into the 7th inning against Maryland in that last game. Hadn't scored a single run after scoring 16 just that morning earlier. So pretty much their pitching has gotten better since that blown lead against Pitt. And that is definitely what propelled them over Maryland in that third game.
Yeah, you talk about Coach C and how she really emphasizes gritty, not pretty. Looking at Brooke, that's just kind of the mindset she had. We saw in her press conference that she just has the belief of her teammates behind her, and she knows she can get it done, and just being able to have trust in herself, go up to the plate. You just get it done. And so you really can't have 31 runs across the weekend without a few standout players. Who really stood out to you throughout the weekend?
You cannot look at this offense and ignore Brooke Clausewitz, the walk-off winner in game number 3. And also the pitching was phenomenal. They get overshadowed because this offense was so good. Allison Oneacre and Gabby Gradishar with the grand slam and one of the winners against Rutgers. So pretty much everybody on offense was fantastic, but the pitching gets overshadowed because of it, right? Mackenzie Duncan, she came in relief of Bridget Namath. Bridget Namath had kind of a little bit of a stinker, allowing 4 earned runs and 1 1/3, but Duncan came in, threw some gas, and she went 3 2/3 with no runs allowed. And then in the second game of the doubleheader, you got Abby Britton and McKenna Young. Abby Britton with 3 shutout innings, McKenna Young with 4 shutout innings. Aubrey Wurst of Maryland was phenomenal in that game. She did walk 10 batters, but only allowed 1 hit. And when your offense is getting so frustrated by a pitcher like that, having girls that like Britton and Young as teammates on the mound to kind of propel your offense and make sure that you're always in the game helps a ton with getting the win and makes your team so much more dangerous.
Yeah, Coach Karma really emphasized that it's hard to beat a team 3 consecutive games in a row, and it's really putting emphasis on their pitching, making sure they're keeping those batters kind of off balance with their pitching. We have, with Mackenzie Duncan being such a high velo pitcher, and then Abigail Britton and McKenna Young, who just absolutely can give them that off-speed pitch. It's really important just to have that depth in their pitching lineup to just be able to add some relief, add some depth and variety in what they can give those batters in Maryland. So looking ahead to Northwestern, what is Penn State? How are they going to keep that streak rolling?
Now, Northwestern is a very different animal than Maryland. Maryland is right at the bottom of the Big Ten, so they took care of business against them like they should have. But Northwestern's a different animal. They are 17-18, but I feel like they're better than their record shows. Their pitching staff is really good, and their common opponent is Oregon, who Penn State got swept by. They almost won 2 out of 3. They probably could have won. The game got ended early in 6 innings because of a drop dead rule because the two teams are so far apart. Very controversial in the college softball world right there. But you look at this team, this is a really good pitching team. And what Penn State needs to do in order to take care of business against a team like Northwestern is just keep the bats going at the pace that they currently are. And that should not be a problem with how they handled those huge innings against Maryland.
Not. It was once again quite impressive. 31 runs, very impressive. Penn State is on a roll, sweeping records in Maryland, making history along the way. The Nittany Lions hope to continue their hot streak and will be back home this weekend for another Big Ten matchup as they take on Northwestern Wildcats. From one diamond to another, let's send it over to Brianna and all things baseball.
On Tuesday, Penn State baseball returned home to Medler Field to host St. Bonaventure for the first Dollar Dog Night of the season. Penn State's newest student section, Section 814, brought the energy to help energize an 8-6 comeback win as the Nittany Lions improved to 7-15 on the season.
As we are trying to build what we think can turn into a championship caliber baseball program, we need the support of students and fans.
Penn State entered the game fresh off a win and carried this momentum in the first inning, taking an early 1-0 lead after starting pitcher Frankie Sanchez held the Bonnies scoreless. The energy continued in the second when Jaden Davis came home to score on a Preston Yocker single, extending the lead. After a strong defensive start, the momentum shifted in the fourth as St. Bonaventure scored 5 runs, taking a 5-2 lead. but Penn State responded. A home run from Avery Smith in the 4th, followed by a go-ahead home run from Bryce Molinaro in the 7th, put the Nittany Lions back on top heading into the 8th. After the team's late comeback at the bottom of the 7th, Coach Gambino was especially proud of how this team was able to rally, saying that they haven't been able to respond in games past, but tonight was a different story.
What I'm pushing this team is we haven't always responded like we want to when things don't go our way. It's been something that we've talked about, and they did a really good job on that tonight.
Despite the excitement of the comeback win, Coach Gambino kept the focus on the bigger picture with the importance of taking the season one game at a time.
And the thing that we're talking about is present positive. That tomorrow, like, good win, that's fine. Tomorrow it's back to zero. It's just one game at a time for the rest of the year.
Penn State continues home play on Wednesday night to take on Bucknell at 5:30. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Brianna Langberg.
Penn State baseball returns home tomorrow after being swept at Nebraska, falling to 3-9 in Big Ten play. This past weekend series was a reflection of how the Nittany Lions have been playing all season, competitive but unable to follow through on momentum. After a tough 8-7 loss in Game 1, Penn State came back on Saturday and struggled to contain an explosive Nebraska offense, giving up 12 runs. And even with a gritty effort to close the series on Sunday, the Nittany Lions came up just short again, falling 8-6. Now, guys, I want to talk about the biggest glaring hole with this team. We can see a team ERA of 8.57. They are definitely struggling. And it's not that they're just giving up runs. They're giving them up in bunches at 3 to 5 runs at a time. I want to know what you guys are seeing.
Yeah, well, you talk about the team ERA hovering at that 8.57 mark, but the team batting average against is sitting at around 325, which is definitely not where you want to be. And Penn State has also allowed 6 or more runs in their past 9 games. So they've been trending in the wrong direction when it comes to pitching. But you look at some of these guys, I don't think these relievers have a put-away pitch. You look at a guy like Matthew Van Ostenbridge, who's a slow-throwing lefty. He doesn't have that pitch to put away batters. They've been pitching to contact a lot, and that's where they've been getting burned.
Yeah, I mean, really, it seems like after the Texas Tech series, it seemed like the pitching staff would kind of shift after facing a kind of Big 12 offense like that. But it just ended up going the wrong way and continued to trend that way. The only bullpen pitcher with a sub-5 ERA for Penn State is Kyle Emmons. And besides that, they're looking for the firefighter guys who can kind of back up Colin Fitzgerald on Fridays and kind of just have the setup stuff. But unfortunately, they haven't really been able to find that. Really, Mason Butash is trying to get some more appearances, Harrison Mullen as well. Robert Brown III having a good freshman campaign, but overall, it's just been kind of a disappointing year on the mound.
Now, we talk about where this team is struggling, but if we take a look at the offense, the only player that's holding this team together is Michael Anderson with the 366 average. But the bats behind him, they just haven't been consistent, like Jaden Davis, like Bryce Molinaro.
Yeah, I mean, between the two, Anderson and Molinaro have 56 RBIs combined, and they don't have anybody with over 15 RBIs after that. That's really the problem of Cole Mercado and Jaden Davis kind of grounding into a lot of double plays. Preston Yonker kind of having that same thing where he's getting good grounded contact, but it's just not kind of working well. But Michael Anderson, he's having a great season. He's about 7th in the program history for single season home runs, right now 13, and he's looking towards the program record.
Yeah, to hit on another Nittany line that's oddly struggled is Jack Porter, who only has 1 home run on the year, finished with 10 last year in 47 games, now through 27 games, only has 1. He seemingly lost all his power, and it's been interesting to see.
Yeah, so when we talk about where this team sits in the rest of the conference, they're at the bottom or near the bottom with teams like Minnesota and Maryland. They have a 3-9 record. So I talked about it earlier with Nebraska. They were competitive in 2 of their 3 games in that series, but they just keep coming up short. What series do you guys see where they can kind of get some of those wins back?
Before hitting on the next Big Ten series, I really want to emphasize the importance of winning tomorrow against FDU. It's Dollar Dog Night. It's going to be a good crowd, but it's I know it has nothing to do for in terms of conference standings, but it's a good morale booster if they can get that win. Looking at these conference games, going to Columbus and playing Ohio State is definitely going to be tough. Rutgers is a series that they need to sweep if they want to stay competitive in the Big Ten. Oregon's going to be tough. But looking at the back three series of this schedule, Minnesota, Washington, and Maryland, those are all series that they can sweep if they're playing their best ball.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of harp on what you were talking about, FDU having a player who's got about 14 home runs, 42 RBIs already this season. So bringing that kind of prowess into Medlar Field at Roanoke Park is huge. But just as much, yeah, I mean, looking at Ohio State, a team that has back-to-back Big Ten sweeps, winning that series in Columbus, kind of getting back into it. Penn State right now is 2 games out of the 12th spot in the Big Ten tournament. It's just about getting those back with every single win. So you have to start out with the Ohio State series.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these last 3 series of the season is definitely where they are going to be able to be playing their best ball. But now still searching for a way into the win column, Penn State hits the road this weekend for a 3-game series against Ohio State. After that, the Nittany Lions will stay on the road for a midweek matchup against West Virginia before returning home for a 3-game series against Rutgers starting April 17th. Now we take a look into men's volleyball. Emily and Kenzie have the latest.
Thanks, Brianna. Penn State men's volleyball continues to make waves this season. The Nittany Lions picked up another set of wins this weekend, adding to their perfect conference record and building momentum as they push deeper into the season. With the postseason looming, questions are raising about how far this team can really go. Here to break it down, I'm Emily Carter, joined alongside Kenzie Ferry. And Kenzie, Penn State had a dominant sweep over Charleston this past weekend, and they added another pair of W's to the win column. But they also continue on their perfect EIVA conference run, which is huge. So, Kenzie, what has been the biggest factor in their consistent dominance?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the pressure they've been able to put alongside the teams from the service line. It all starts with the serve, and they've been getting it done. They're currently second in the EIV with aces per set, averaging 1.4 aces a set. And that's huge. That's an extra 1 to 2 points every set just from their serves. Not even talking about their good serves that go over, but they're not an ace, but it's still making Charleston out of system.
Right, exactly. And I think another important thing to note is that blocking has been a cornerstone for this team this season, and it's truly been such an important part of their identity. And I think when it comes to blocking, one thing that we really need to talk about, is Owen Rose, who has been absolutely electric recently. And I mean, just this past weekend, he had 10 blocks alone in that match against Charleston. And it's not only Owen Rose, you have the Schwob and Harvey duo who have been so electric. They brought it this weekend, really contributing to the blocking. Or Gage Gabriel, there's so many contributors. And I have to mention, on Friday this past weekend, Penn State was able to hold Charleston to a 62 hitting percentage. And for those of you non-volleyball people out there, that's not impressive. And that just speaks to their defensive dominance and their ability to get the job done and shut down and neutralize their opponent's attacks. But now looking on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, this team, one thing that has been so huge for them this season is they have multiple hitters contributing. They're not just relying on 1 or 2 guys, which I think is a huge part of their strategy. How big is their offensive balance?
Yeah, definitely. You have Harvey, Luoma, and Wilson all leading Penn State in hitting different nights. That is huge to have 3 different hitters. You don't have one consistent hitter that's just carrying the team. You have fresh set of arms every single set, and that's huge for them. I mean, you also, as you said, Owen Rose gets it done defensively and offensively. He averages hitting 500, which is huge for them because that means Charleston middle blocker had to stay and block Owen Rose, which led the Pins to get a one-on-one opportunity to go up.
Yeah, and I mean, what makes this team so special is one night Harvey could be leading the offensive effort, and the next night it could be Luoma or Wilson. You never really know. And that's, again, it makes it hard for a defense to hone in on them and shut them down, which is just so huge. But now zooming out and looking at the bigger picture here, what are some ways that Penn State can improve their game as they start to roll through the end of conference play and into the postseason?
Yeah, I know I talked about their serving earlier, but serving aggressively also comes with its cons. They currently have 342 service errors on the season and only 117 aces. While they're getting it done with aces, you need to eliminate those service errors to see success and fully hone that consistency is what they're going to need. They also, against top 5 opponents, tend to come out strong set 1, but then they always dip down set 2. And against those top 5 opponents, there's no room to take a dip in set 2.
Exactly. I mean, you said it perfectly. And I think right now it's consistency, right? I mean, that's what it's all about at this point. Owen Rose, he's got his hard hat on. So it's time for them to start ironing out those little errors, or those service errors that seem small at the moment, but those add up. And that's what can cost you a tightly contested matchup. And again, this team, they're going to have to focus both ends on the ball, really ironing out those errors and those mistakes. But I'm interested to see if they can keep up this momentum. I know all of us Penn State men's volleyball fans were on the edge of our seats, seeing how this conference play tends to roll out, and as we head into the postseason. So we'll see. But Penn State men's volleyball hits the road again this weekend to take on the Pioneers of Sacred Heart University and return to Rec Hall on April 17th to face George Mason. With the postseason on the horizon, every match counts as the Nittany Lions look to keep the momentum going and boost their resume. Now it's time to switch gears and see what action is taking place at Panzer Stadium.
Thanks, Emily. I'm Erin, your women's lacrosse beat reporter, joined alongside Connor and Chase, your men's lacrosse beat reporters. As both teams are away, they face similar opponents with similar results. Penn State women's lacrosse went head-to-head with number 3 Maryland on March 29th, coming up just short in a thrilling 14-13 battle. Then just 2 days ago, they traveled to Columbus, Ohio, where they were dominated Ohio State with an impressive 18-9 victory. The men's team was also in Ohio, where they secured a solid 13-6 win over Ohio State and then hit the road to face Johns Hopkins in another tight contest, ultimately falling 11-10 in a game that went down to the wire.
So speaking of thriller games, let's circle back to women's lacrosse and that match against Maryland. They come in as maybe a little bit of an underdog, maybe expecting a loss, but they kept it very close. What did you see in that battle?
Yeah, so definitely coming in as the underdog, as you mentioned. I wasn't expecting this game to be as close as it was, but a 14-16 game, I think they really proved that they deserve to be up there with the best. I mean, Maryland is now number 1. They were number 3 when they faced them, but I mean, they deserve to be in this conversation. The issue with their play right now has been their first half of the game. They have been really a second half team. We heard Coach Kayla Trainer talking against their last home game versus Michigan, talking about how they have been able to have the momentum that they do have in the second half of the game in the first half. In this game, they had 7 goals in the second half. I mean, that's nothing to shy away about. 7 goals is really good, but they need to have that momentum in the first half. I mean, I want to draw our focus to some of our freshmen here. Rocket Allen had 5 goals and 1 assist. She's just able to have that momentum. McKenna Gagliardi, she had a 57.1 save rate, and she was a freshman coming into the game, really having that ability to just, play out there and make those saves for this offense.
Yeah, you touched on the potential of this offense, and it's really been impressive. And we saw that the true potential against Ohio State. Big win. What did you see in that game that stood out and a little bit different from what we saw in Maryland?
Yeah, so this game with Ohio State was 18-9. I mean, that's a huge difference, and they were able to do exactly what they needed to do. They started off great in the first half, and they just didn't in the second. They kept that momentum going in the second, which is what they needed to do. Kelly McKinney had a career high of 7 goals and 2 assists. A Penn State player hasn't netted 7 goals since 2024 in the NCAA tournament. So her being able to step into that role as a junior was just super impressive. Delaney Radian had her 40th assist of the season. So she's able to really hold that star offensive player mindset. Sydney Manning with 12 saves. Again, funny enough, a 57.1 save percentage. If you're able to keep the ball on the offensive side and make those saves, you're able to have more shots on goal, more goals, and that's exactly what this Penn State offense did.
And they spread the wealth. You can see, I mean, it was a full team effort. It wasn't just they have their stars, but everyone's contributing in their own ways, and that's what's made them so successful. And we saw that against Ohio State, that full potential.
Exactly. Talking a little bit about starting off strong in the first half, men's lacrosse switching over. They started off strong against Ohio State. What did that game look like?
Yeah, the Nittany Lions came out of the gate extremely hot. They went up 4-0 and never really looked back. Ohio State actually never even came within 2 goals. And much of the credit has to go to Jack Eintuona, who had 2 goals and 2 assists in their win. And overall, it was just a quality win against a Big Ten team on the road. And it wasn't just their offense that was shining, but also their defense, who forced 23 turnovers. So, yeah, overall, it was a very impressive win. And unfortunately, it didn't go the same against Johns Hopkins, as we'll touch on earlier. But this was a great conference win for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on Antoino because he is a freshman, but he sure plays like a vet for this team. And you have Hunter Aquino out for 5 games. The motto of this team has been get off the hot starts, control the faceoffs. They did that. We saw that in Maryland. We saw that in Ohio State. We didn't see that as much in Johns Hopkins and neither in North Carolina earlier. And that's kind of where they found their rough patches. But you get out to those hot starts against Ohio State, they were getting close to the goal against a big goalie. They weren't finding success from long range. They found the success in short range. And Antoino played a big role in all that success.
Yeah, so switching over to the Johns Hopkins game, they're 3-0 in conference play, and yet they had a nearly 23-minute scoring drought. I mean, that is a long time for them not to score, and that affects their play. What happened in that game?
I think it's just a piece of missing Aquino. I think this picture, you see, they're averaging about the same record, but they're averaging about 2 goals less a game, and I put him as the engine of the team. He is an All-American, so losing someone like that's not easy. Now, granted, they've stepped up pretty well, but they've had a rough stretch of games. I think he is that missing piece. They're losing games by only 1 score. Against Hopkins, they were up 9-4. They lose 11-10. That's an unacceptable stretch. But I think when it comes time in the NCAA tournament, if you get him back and you make that tournament, I think he's the missing piece that could take them to the next step.
Yeah, Penn State really just seemed to beat themselves this game. As you mentioned earlier, the 23-minute scoring drought, it's just really hard to come back from that and beat a team like Johns Hopkins. But with that being said, they never really felt like Penn State was out of this game. In fact, they had 2 opportunities to tie the game up with under 20 seconds left. But unfortunately, they didn't make either shot, and they ended up having a gut-wrenching loss to Johns Hopkins. Hopefully they can bounce back next week against Michigan. But yeah, it just was not an overall good result from the team.
Speaking about looking ahead to their next home game, looking ahead, Penn State lacrosse returns to Happy Valley this week. Women's lacrosse will face Oregon on Thursday, and the men's team will host their senior game against Michigan on Saturday. They will make a strong comeback after suffering their first conference loss of the season. Penn State fans can definitely expect some exciting lacrosse action. Now let's toss it to our hosts, Charley and Gina, with the top plays of the week.
Our number 3 top play from this week was center fielder Natalie Lito's diving catch and unassisted double play to secure the Game 1 victory over Maryland.
The second top play of the week occurred in the 4th inning when the Nittany Lions began their comeback against Illinois. Jaden Davis was the first to get runs on the board as he drilled a triple into right field and drove in Bryce Melanero.
And our number 1 top play of the week was freshman Gabby Gradishar's huge grand slam in Penn State's 13-5 win over Maryland.
Looking ahead, Penn State has an exciting week of sports. Dollar Dog Night is back in town tomorrow night starting at 5:30. Support Penn State baseball as they take on FDU. Women's lacrosse looks to improve their Big Ten record of 2-2 to 4-2 as they compete against Oregon and Northwestern at home this upcoming week.
Men's volleyball is heading to Sacred Heart for its final away series of the regular season to play against the Pioneers for a 2-game set this weekend. Game 1 will be Friday night at 7 p.m. Meanwhile, softball welcomes the Northwestern Wildcats for a 3-game series this weekend at Beard Field and will look to continue its strong Big Ten run. First pitch is scheduled for 5 p.m. on Friday.
And to finish off this week of sports, the baseball team will go out to Ohio to face Ohio State, where it's crucial they get a Big Ten win. Men's lacrosse is continuing their Big Ten streak of games as this Saturday, the team celebrates Senior Day against Michigan at 1 p.m. For more content, be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and X, and look out for weekly sports updates and packages. For everyone behind the scenes, beat reporters, and our producers, for Gina Scarpa, I'm Charley Drexler. Have a great night.